everyone, Samantha here from samanthawilsonart.com, where you can find contemporary art and specialized art courses from wherever you are in the world. Today's tutorial is a little exciting because it's going to be an introduction in how to draw hair. Now, if you saw one of my last videos, I gave an introduction to portraiture, how to structure the features of the face. In the next series of videos, I'm going to be taking you through how to shade and draw in more detail the specific features of the face, and this one is hair. So I hope it's helpful, and without further ado, let's jump right in. For this exercise, you're going to need tissue paper, putty, and a sharp plastic eraser, blending stick, charcoal pencil, a black pastel, and willow charcoal. So to get started, we'll place in the rough head shape, and we just are going to use willow charcoal to give a loose base for the hair. Just using the side of the charcoal would drag it along the paper to create a loose shape. And then smooth the willow charcoal out with a tissue paper. So of course I'm using a very specific shape of hair in this video, and she has these bunchies and the fringe, so this is just the generic shape that I'm using. So no matter what hairstyle you're drawing, it will start in a similar way with a loose base like this. And because this hair is black, I'm using like really dark pastel next, but if it's blonde hair, it's going to start the same way, but then you won't add as much dark pastel. And I'm just taking a black pastel, I'm just blocking in key dark areas around the hair. And if you take your finger and you really press down quite hard on the pastel, and using circular motions, you can smooth it out. And you'll see how dark it is. I find that black pastel is more effective than other types of charcoal, especially in this case if you're drawing black hair. That's how you can get it extremely dark. And you can really keep adding as you go in sections. And you can see I'm almost using my finger and the pastel and pushing it around to redefine the hair shapes. The fringe and around the bottom and around the skull there, using my finger to tidy up the initial drawing. So once you have a solid base of dark down with the pastel, we're going to take a plastic eraser, and you can cut this into a sharp shape so that it's easy to control, and you're going to drag it along the hair. And in this picture she has this fringe that has all these little highlights on it, and the trick is to have the eraser really sharp and just pull it through the hair in small sharp motions quite quickly so that you get quite lively marks. And you'll keep repeating that step and going back and forth between using the eraser and then using your finger to smooth out those marks, and then adding here, as you see, I've got a charcoal pencil now, and I'm going to almost add in lines between the areas that I've just rubbed out, and adding more black pastel in between. And if you'll see, and that's a blending stick, that I'm smoothing those things together. So it's this dance between using a sharp eraser, adding pencil lines between it, and then blending with a blending stick to smooth it out. And you just keep repeating this process, refining it and redrawing, and always looking at the image as you go to find, because now you start looking at it a bit more carefully and you start finding little stray hairs like the one I'm drawing right now. You're starting to place in the more refined detailed parts of the hair, going between black pastel, the eraser, your finger, and the blending stick. And you'll start to see little areas of the hair emerging and starting to look more real, and even that part there. And I'm still refining the shape, and I've just noticed that parts of the hair are not in the right place, so I'm removing them with an eraser, refining the bottom of the shape of the hair, again using my finger, and it's starting to come together more nicely now. The blending stick will help you smooth out those thin areas of charcoal where your finger is too clumsy to get in. And if you use the sharp eraser and the blending stick together around these thinner hairs, you'll start to see the thin hairs look more delicate the way they are because they're very thin. And then using your finger to smooth everything down and unify them together. And as you go forward with this now, you're repeating all of these steps and refining it each time, looking at the shapes more carefully. You might remove hairs that you've put in initially that you feel like they're not actually in the right place. You can start moving to other parts of the hair. It's usually easy to go section by section. I usually jump around to all different parts, but if you go section by section, it's quite helpful. So now I'm just removing some of those shadows from under the fringe to make it straighter. And I'm just refining the drawing again, looking at the top of the hair, fixing the shape a little bit and adding any little stray hairs that might be there. And it's important to think of hair as not so overwhelming that you have to draw thousands of little hairs in the exact same place that you see them on the person or the photograph, because it's not really the case. You just need to get it believable enough. So you'll never get all the hairs in the exact same place. You just need it to look real enough. So if you look at the shapes of the shadows and the highlights and try to replicate that, then that will get you a close enough desired hair result. And as I'm just drawing purely hair in this image, I'm just working around almost an invisible face shape, but it's just to show you. So I'm adding a little chin underneath. So you can see it really goes in stages. You know, a loose beginning and then adding some detail and then re-refining again and adding some more detail, maybe cleaning the page up a little bit and then going back in again, re-refining, coming back to the foundation of the drawing before you go ahead with more details, because of course every stage that you do, you start noticing new things that you didn't see in the beginning. So it's a real process of back and forth. And this is a fun bit, because when you start getting to the last final details, you can start adding little stray, really thin hairs, which just start giving the hair even more life. And in this particular image, she has these sort of loose bunches, so I'm removing the gap that wasn't necessary to remove right from the beginning, but that's what I mean. You can have a whole chunk of hair and then remove things later on and add those little stray hairs inside. And the blending stick is a real useful tool because you can just drag the charcoal out, as you can see, to create little stray hairs. So it's not just for smoothing, but you can also use it almost like a paintbrush to pull the charcoal out. Just the way I'm doing here with little tiny hairs. Refining little details with the pencil, smoothing again with the finger, and then removing any excess around those little hairs with the eraser to make them really clear. So mostly here I'm repeating the things that I've already explained, but if you can just see the continued process of going back and forth between a charcoal pencil, the black pastel, and the blending stick to pull things together. And just there I drew a hair using the blending stick, just dragging charcoal down onto the face and then refining that again with the eraser to remove any stray hairs. So you're always looking at the image and you just keep going back and forth between these mediums. And this section of the hair I hadn't really drawn much detail in at all yet, but now I'm adding in those final block dark areas and using the charcoal pencil to draw those stray hairs on the inside of the right hand side bunchy and smoothing it all out with my finger. So it's all finally coming together for the last section. And here I'm taking the plastic eraser again to pull out some larger highlights at the end, especially through this second bunchy and down the fringe, and then going through the middle of those highlights with the pencil and the blending stick to unify them. And any stray hairs just refining with the pencil and the blending stick, because sometimes the hairs, they're darker and thicker on one part and then really thin on another part. Variation is important to make the hair look real. You've got to have a cross between thin and light and then dark and thicker and heavy to make it look more organic. And this is a case of just repeating all of those things. Keep going right until the end, repeating all these same steps, pulling out last minute highlights with the plastic eraser, refining with the charcoal pencil, smoothing with the blending stick and their finger, adding any really dark, last minute dark areas with the pastel, smoothing it in with your finger, and removing any excess with the erasers. And the last thing I want to mention is that when you get close to the end and you're removing some final highlights, is that you can also go in with a chalk pastel, a white one, to make some of your highlights really shine. Just like this. And you can soften those in again using the blending stick or your finger, and you can see that they really just make the hair pop a little bit, making it look more realistic. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and if this video was helpful for you and you would like to see these every week, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to let me know that this video brought you value today. And if you would like to request a specific tutorial, don't forget that you can drop me a comment below. I would be more than happy to make a video following your specific requests. So that's it for today, and until next time, take good care. See you soon.